Hello and welcome back to another episode of JK2. I'm Zoe Kirk-Robinson. Jenny will be along in a moment, but I'm introducing this because it's my family's cinefilms. Now, this comes from sometime in the late 70s, so just before I was around, and as a result, I have no idea what was going on. I can't ask the people that are in it because they're no longer with us. So, we've got some steam events, some racing on the beach, and what appears to be an industrial construction area. All stuff that you might find quite interesting if you're planning a new part of your own model railway, or if you're just into video footage from the past. So I thought you might like this, and Jen's going to try and explain what some of the things that we're seeing are, because the only parts I can understand and explain to you is a replica of locomotion number 1 and a couple of trams. I like my trams. But Jen will know more, so let's go straight to it.
First thing we're looking at here, these are vintage trams. I'm not sure of the location. I'm told that these were filmed in the 1970s. And this could even be somewhere like probably Beamish. It's interesting to note that these are preserved trams, so they'll still exist. In fact, the more I look at this, the more I think this is Beamish. And it's interesting to note the London Underground stock in the foreground. This looks to be something like a Ruston Beckerus steam shovel. And these would have been very prominent, not just in the mining and quarrying industry, but would have actually once upon a time built the railways. We've also got a steamroller there in the background. Plus, again, I think this is Beamish, and this is some of the industrial locomotives that were running there. In the 1970s, this would have all been quite new, and a lot of these buildings were transferred here from elsewhere. The locomotion number 1 replica, it's interesting that we've got people being given rides in the chaldron wagons. And then also some footage of the station that was on site in use. This line was originally connected to the mine area, but as the tramway was extended, this was cut back. And I think that this is the J21 locomotive back when it was first in use, so it would have been newly withdrawn from BR and probably on its original boiler ticket. Some of this other footage though, this I'm going to guess is possibly somewhere like Shildon, based on the context of who had actually recorded this. So you can see some of the preserved locomotives at work. It's really interesting to note the colours. Of course, the actual colour of things in old cinefilm you have to take with a little bit of a pinch of salt because of the colour reproduction, the age of the footage. But again, it's really nice to see this in colour. We've got the Cali 044 tank, and this looks to be, I think it's something like an Ivet 2MT on the front. This is some kind of bike meetup out on the coast, and obviously in the days before health and safety had been invented, I don't really see anything in the way of like rope barriers or anything, but people actually generally were quite well behaved back then and took personal responsibility to some sort of level. I'm guessing that this was like a local meetup for biking enthusiasts. A lot of these look to be what we would consider today to be dirt bikes. But it's interesting to note, this being back in the 1970s, there's much more of a crossover with some of the motorbikes that people would have been familiar with in the time, and then a race along the sands. So would this have been somewhere like South Shields or Seaham? I'm not quite sure, but definitely this is still within the northeast area. Again, we've got a small crowd watching here, but there's just a layer of cones to demark from the racetrack and where people are watching, but it all does seem quite nice and laid back, probably a weekend meet. A lot of interesting bikes, and again, just to see this slice of life recorded on colour cine footage. A lot of this still goes on today. You see a lot of dirt bike tracks built up at the side of, I see a lot of them on the M62, M18, and weekend meetups. So not really much different then from now. This is clearly a fun fair. I remember things like those up and running from my childhood. And I think this is probably one of the NCB workshops. So what we're looking at here is some heavy equipment being moved via low loader. It's not possible on the screen for me to see the number plate, but that would give an indication of era. But this is 1970s. Again, no high vises visible, but we do have the safety helmets creeping in. This is a Coles crane. Again, quite common equipment being used by the National Coal Board, and these would often be moved between pits. This could even be one of the coking plants, again, without actually having a soundtrack and some kind of context to this. I'm not sure whether it's a coking plant or the pit itself, but clearly reminiscent of the kind of heavy industry that was still very common in the 1970s. Very distinctive architecture, a lot of the buildings with that concrete frame filled in with brick is something very reminiscent of 1950s onwards. Now this is, I always knew it as like the Parthenon. It's over near Sunderland.
It's the Lambton...
Monument?
Yeah, Lambton Monument.
So I'm guessing that this is to do with the actual building of parts of Washington. Now, Washington itself, there's the old village, but then there's an element of Newtown that is sprawled up around it. We've got gasometers back there and a lot of very, very heavy-duty cranes. This looks now to be one of the shipyards, maybe Wallsend, which would be Swan Hunter, I think. So a lot of this has just been swept away, so it really is a great record of what once there was.
So there you are. It's a few minutes of footage, about 5 or 6 minutes. It's not a huge amount, but it's interesting, isn't it? Back in the day, people would go to these events, and yes, they would film it the same way that we film events now, but not as much because cinefilm was expensive compared to just whipping out your phone or your camera and having an SD card full of footage by the end of the day. So it is a different way of experiencing the world, which I think to a certain extent we've lost, and that's sad, but these things happen. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do remember to click that like button, share it with your friends so that they can see a blast from the past too. But until next time, I've been Zoe Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching JK2, have a great day, I'll see you next time.
I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.